I hope I'm not upside down. But
you look right side up over here.
I'm right side up over there. Okay, great, because I just flipped myself around. And today would be a great Sunday for me to have started upside down, right? I just want to start with saying, there's an alarm going off. Can you hear it? There's an alarm going off. Can you hear it? There's an alarm going off. Can you hear it? So you might think you know what I'm talking about, but I was doing some work around the house yesterday, and as I'm doing my work around the house, I was cleaning up poison ivy, and I was moving things that had touched some, insecticide ant stuff, and I was cleaning out a chicken coop. And so I was dirty, my hands were gross, and I had my phone with me. And when I came inside, I put the phone away and did the rest of my things, and I went to bed not having any idea where my phone was, but knowing that I needed to clean it off because I wasn't trusting that it was so clean after the day's events. And so I decided it was okay that I didn't know where it was and that I would find it in the morning. And so I got up and I, tried to call it with my iPad, and I had a friend try to call it, and I couldn't find the phone. I couldn't find the phone. And so right before our experience, our conversation this morning, I realized my alarms started going off, right? So I have alarms on everything. If you know me, there's good reasons why I have alarms on everything. So my iPad alarm started going off. And then I remembered, I have a phone alarm. I will be able to find my phone because the phone alarm is going to go off. At some point this morning, the phone alarm, which is the last call alarm, will go off, and I will hear it. I will know. And so I'm happy about that, but I'm still in the zone of my spiritual preparation for this morning. And so I'm not really paying attention to it or waiting for it. That's a side note. I'm fully engaged in what I'm doing. So as I'm fully engaged in what I'm doing, I noticed one of G's little stuffed animals outside, and I think, I should just grab that just because, I don't want it to stay outside. And so I open the door at 10:01. I open the door to outside, and I stick my head out to grab this stuffed animal. And what do I hear? Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. The alarm is going off, but it's not in the house. It's outside. Now, had I not opened the door at that exact minute, I might have missed the alarm that went off at 10 o'clock exactly, that goes off for a little while and then shuts itself off. So I go outside like this, I don't even have my shoes on, but I'm like, where is it? Where is it? Is it over by the chicken coops? Is it in the grass by the poison ivy? Thank goodness it didn't rain last night. And I find it on one of those wheelbarrow kind of things, but a black piece of metal. And I find it on the black part where you wouldn't even be able to see it facing up. So I had known when I was calling it before that the ringer was off. So if I was going to find it, I would have to look for the light, because the only thing that happens is the light starts shining, right? And if I'm looking around carefully enough, I can see the light and I will find my phone. Well, this time, obviously I couldn't see the light. And had I not just open the door at that exact time. Are you getting the story here? Are you getting the movement of energy into the right place at the right time, and looking for the light and getting it? And there is my phone making a sound, turning on the alarm right at the moment. So I bring it in, and I'm grateful that it wasn't out there for this hot sunny day on black metal where surely it would have fried itself. Take a breath with me. A deep breath. There's an alarm going off. An alarm should be going off. Usually this Sunday is about membership and commitment and community and service, because this is the Sunday where we have our annual meeting. So usually the conversation around that is about our togetherness, is about our co-creation of spiritual community and support. It's about our ownership. It's about our accountability. It's about showing up for others, even when we don't need something for ourselves. It's about the legacy we leave when we cultivate and create something together as a community. It's about all of these things. It's about the amazing gift of service and what people do when they come together That's what this Sunday is usually about. And it's still about all of that, but it's about more. I don't know about you, but a few years back during the election, I felt like all of a sudden we are in a stage and a phase where it was difficult to talk about some of the things we had always talked about in unity, like love and compassion and other, and the wholeness of being and honoring an individual, no matter where they're from, and wellness and human dignity. A lot of these things seem to become divisive when you spoke to them. And of course, everyone, when we speak to anything, embedded in our language and our energy is our heart and who we are and where we come from. But if you remember, like I remember, I bet you had that same experience where things that maybe you used to talk about freely or frequently were all of a sudden different. They were all of a sudden met with different energy and met with a different experience. Do you remember that feeling? Did you have that feeling? How is reality now different from it was at the beginning of that feeling? How have we as individuals and as a collective shifted, changed, become united, or become divided? How is our world, internal and external, shifted in these recent years? For many of us, we'd say it's shifted a lot. But one of the questions for today is to really look at how it's different and what we learned. What did we learn from that time of divisiveness, or this time of divisiveness and controversy? What have we learned up until now, and have we metabolized it? I feel to some degree that all of a sudden we are now in another shift point. We are now again in a place where if we talk about compassion or social responsibility or freedom of choice or the impact we have on each other, or what these ideas of self and other mean, we are running into a similar energy of conflict and divisiveness. One of our beloveds posted to the community this post on social media. It said, I used to have friends that flooded my feed with the love and light and passion they lived by. Even when, especially when their beliefs were different from mine, I stopped, I listened, I noticed, and researched your light. Now my feed brings anxiety and tension from those who are now determined that their way is the only way. My inbox makes me scream or cry, depending on when it's received. I'll continue to follow the light. What has happened to us? And then there's a posting from Matthew when Jesus said to his disciples, stop judging that you may not be judged. Do you remember? How are things different now? Have you metabolized what you've learned? Do we remember? How are we different now? Have we metabolized what we learned? Friends, I set the alarm on my phone for something that matters to me so that I can show up for it. That's what we do with alarms. An alarm should be going off right now. We have the opportunity to learn from the past and the current to learn that this experience, this collective experience that we have been in, has shown us so many things. It's shown us that we can divide further into factions. It's shown us that we can get more extreme in our beliefs, more solid in our beliefs. It's shown us our healing work. It's shown us our systematic issues and problems. It's shown us the limitations of our spirituality or spiritual understanding to this moment in time. And it has caused us, hopefully, to expand ourselves, to dive deep into the core of our being, to the place of love and consciousness, so that we may birth forth a greater reality rather than rearrange our trauma, package it, separate it, and create from it. Wayne Mueller, who is an incredible teacher and author, said in Legacy of the Heart, he says this about grandiosity and woundedness. He said, a more subtle form of grandiosity arises within our experience of feeling broken. He goes on to say, our wounds and hurts, our pain and suffering become our offering, something we carry like a gift to the altar. But here's the sentence in between that I didn't read. He says this, in between. When we enter therapy and when we go to workshops and read books and talk to friends, what we most often bring is our brokenness. So how do we get from the place of our brokenness bringing grandiosity and bringing woundedness to the world into a place where we are conscious that it is what we lift upon the altar, and through that communion with the divine and honoring the love in the collective, we dedicate it to good and we lift it up. We are living through a collective crisis right now. Whether we call it a crisis or not, call it a blockbuster video time. It's a film time of things that are going on that many of us never thought we'd ever see. There was no roadmap for. It's the first time. But it's a collective crisis that we're living through as individuals, communities, countries, and a global world. And it has to do with our physical health. It has to do with our mental health. It has to do with our civil liberties. It has to do with equality. It has to do with unrest. It has to do with governance. It has to do with the environment. But it has to do with something far greater than all of those things. What is clear to me, and I think if we really look at it, what is crystal clear is that change is asking to happen. We are being not just invited into change, we're getting the collective 2x4 together saying change must happen in whatever systems, in whatever consciousness, whatever our processes, whatever the collective is experiencing. There is a clear call for change that is asking to happen. So before we settle in on a limited idea and think that the emerging evolution of consciousness is about whether or not we wear masks, or it's about social unrest or politicians or conspiracy theories, let's step into spiritual principle for a moment together and ponder the possibility that this is about a grand emergence of a new era of consciousness and the invitation into a new way of being. The emergence of a new state of consciousness and a new way of being. My favorite law from Charles Fillmore that he wrote was the law of infinite expansion. the law that says the idea of all of creation, and it was described in The Phenomena of Man by Teilhard de Chardin. It's this idea that everything is evolving into greater expansion and greater expression. So no matter what it looks like, we know we have a forest fire that can burn a field, burn a forest into a field. We know that that can happen, and it looks like destruction, but from that fire comes new life. We know that we have seasons, and it looks like things are, dying out, and then there is life under there. And so is this idea of infinite expansion. It's that there is a seed of life, and it is continually growing, and it is continually evolving. And if we are so intent on looking at our attachments to these ideas that divide us, or these forms, or saying this is what this is, and this is what that is, and this is what this is, we may miss the emergent healing that is being offered to us, the call to change that we are being invited into. Martin Luther King Jr. said, every society has its protectors of status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent, who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. Today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. An alarm should be going off. This alarm, I believe, is one that is calling us to learn from our past experience, to step into the law of infinite expansion, and to check ourselves, to wake up when we hear it. Will we allow our diversity in this moment to divide us, or will we allow it to unite us? Will we allow this to bring us closer together? Will we allow this to expand our minds and our sense of self and our ideas of other? Will we allow this to show us more about our wholeness and our divine safety in our spiritual source that doesn't have form, that isn't concerned about, all of the things that the separate sense of self is concerned about? Will we take this time as an expansion of our spiritual practice? As individuals, as a community, and as a global expression, will we allow our diversity to divide us, or will we have our humanity and our divinity unite us? This call to change, this invitation to be aware, this alarm is an alarm that is saying, go deeper, grow deeper, experience your wholeness, challenge your spiritual ideas. If something doesn't fit, roll it around. We're learning about principle. We're learning now more than ever that if we don't source something, it won't be here. We're learning that what we bring to something is life. What we give to something sustains it. We're learning about principle in a way that maybe some of us haven't had the opportunity to do that before. Whether it's the economy, or whether it's your spiritual community, or whether it's your home. We're learning about the value of ourselves and our wholeness. We're learning about the practice, the principles and the practice. How do I care for myself? How do I care for others? How do I breathe into emotional regulation? How do I breathe into supporting my own mental health, my own spiritual well-being? How do I do this for myself? And how do I do this for others? How do we allow this time to bring us more deeply together? When I do weddings, there is a line that I almost always include, And it's a line that goes something like this, that this marriage and this love will be a place of safe harbor, and that it will be that, and I don't go into this in detail in the wedding, but it will be that not because you just got married, not because you're standing here today having a wedding, not because this ring somehow is a magical circular wand that makes good things happen. No, your love will be a place of repair and safe harbor because you are committed to making that happen. Because you are committed to making that happen. Because we are committed to making that happen. What are we committed to making happen? To allowing to happen through us. Because we know that we don't have a wand that we can make things happen outside of us without allowing them to happen in us. Allowing them to be born, to grow, to develop, and to prosper within us, so that in us, through us, and as us, we co-create the world that works, the world of visions, the world of love. The alarm going off is the alarm saying, we're at a time when you can decide and you can choose divisiveness or love. Plain and simple. What would love do? What would love say? You know, before this service, we have an opportunity to just chit chat for a second before the service. And Steve Epley was playing that song, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love. And we weren't live streaming yet, though we all thought we were. And then Reverend Brandon said, wait, we're not live streaming yet. Go ahead, start it over, Steve. And I popped my face back in the picture and I said, I'm singing along with you in my kitchen like you're singing. And I'm going, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And I said that, and then Jenny unmuted her mic and she said, I am too, but I'm muted because I love you. Can we breathe into the possibility that sometimes we need to be muted because we love people? Sometimes before we say something, before we post something, before we cough something, before whatever it is. Have you heard these awful stories about people coughing on other people? I sidetrack, but I saw a story about someone coughing on a mother of many children who was going through cancer treatment at a store because she was being belligerent about being required to wear a mask. And so she went right up to her face and coughed on her. That's a time to just breathe and mute yourself. Emotional regulation. We have learned that speaking with mindfulness, wisdom, compassion, love opens doors and opens conversations, that these town halls where people of diverse ideas can come together and discuss and talk, we've learned that heals. We learned that opens the mind and opens the heart, right? We've learned that systemic issues, when we all start speaking from the heart and showing up for each other and showing up together, that heals. But what we have certainly learned is that when we become grandiose in our ideas, attacking, belligerent, unkind, unloving, that everything gets filtered, and it simply gets filtered into this space of divisiveness. It does not heal. So can our communions, can what we bring to the altar, even when it comes from our woundedness, our suffering, and our divisiveness, can we ask for a mighty blessing and then step into alignment and integrity with that blessing, can we ask that it be put through a filter of the Holy Spirit, a filter of the holy life, a filter of our holy union together, that we may speak from wisdom, compassion, care, love, light, all of these things that we know have the ability to harmonize. Can we give from those places? And can we allow enough space for diversity? You know, unity, one of the things people love about unity, one of the most beautiful things about unity as a spiritual practice, or as you might say a religion, is that it's one where you can bring what you believe to it, that there's no one telling you what to believe and what you have to do and what's right and wrong and throwing stuff out for you. Even though we teach certain principles, even though when we're teaching our prayer teams, or when we're teaching what prayer is and how to activate the principle and the power and the presence, we may teach that it's not anthropomorphic. You know, it's not an anthropomorphic God that sits in the sky, that's a man, that God doesn't have a gender, that in fact, energy, life, love, that all of these diverse ideas and expressions of God that are in light are acceptable. And this idea that we have that, you know, if someone's not in unity, we don't think they're going to hell, you know? That in fact, we honor all spiritual practices that lead to awakening and enlightenment. That you don't have to let go of your Father God when you walk in the door at unity, even if we teach that God is not a man. If that's your connection and your expression, if that's what brings you comfort and brings you life, then be there, because just about anything we say or ideate or we think we know how it is, we put it into form or expression or conversation, it's limited. It's wrong to some degree. I mean, what are the chances that you in this incarnation, in this place, on this planet, in this home you're living in, that you, among all people, got it exactly right? This whole universe of creation, God, that you got it right. It's humbling, isn't it? It should be humbling. If we think so fiercely that we got it right, we think everyone else has got it wrong, and we try to get them to follow our guidance or our intuition or our God, what we are is declaring our God limited. Because if God, if the grand overall design, if the energy of life, the energy of love that is born in everyone, that is written on the heart of all life, if it can't breathe through, speak to, reach its creation, if it is not equally accessible and available to all people, if there is not a process of the law of infinite expansion that allows for grace, that nourishes and nurtures all of us from right where we are into our next evolutionary pattern, into our next space, if we don't believe in that grand of a God, you put God in a package. And we've made ourselves in charge of that package. So let's hear the alarm. Let's hear it going off. And you know how you can set the alarms on your phone? You can have either like a obnoxious sound ringing that wakes you up, or you can hear subtle chimes and dings, or you can set it to a song. Like right now I would pick John Mellencamp, Now More Than Ever, The world needs love, not just a slogan, but the world needs love. Now more than ever, I can't stand alone. Now more than ever. So right when the alarm goes off, that's what you hear. Right when the alarm goes off, that's what we hear. We are at a time, friends, where that post that I read to you from a beloved, that beloved needs her community. We are all going through things in our own experience where we need each other, where we have the opportunity to share with each other our light, to lift each other up. As Paul said to the churches in Thessalonians, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Friends, there are people that are dealing with unprecedented mental health issues. There are people that are dealing with wellness issues. There are people that are dealing with fear. There are people that are dealing with discontent in their spirituality that isn't bringing them fully into this moment. There are people that are dealing with illusions in their spirituality that are holding them back. There are people that are trying to co-parent in a time of diversity. There are people that are committed to ideologies and ideas and feeling like they're losing what they value. There are people that don't have what they always knew they could count on to keep them grounded or safe, because we are at a time of change, and we are in a time of shift, and we are in a time of being called into the infinite expansion. And doesn't that sound uncomfortable? Of course, if we think we're entering a time of infinite expansion, that sounds uncomfortable. That sounds like some work. That sounds a little tough. Can we be there for each other? Can we stop trying to override other people's intuitions and what is right for them? Can we be compassionate? Can we seek to understand? Can we allow for the diversity like unity does in its practice? Can we allow for the diversity of people? Can we let love enter? Can we seek understanding and recognize that this is a time to learn? Can we set personal boundaries and listen to ourselves when we are asked or invited to compromise what makes us feel safe or what our own intuition calls us to in order to make someone else more comfortable? Can we make room to be humble? Can we make space for diversity and differing ideas? But overall, can we learn from what we've been through and invite this time to grow us, to expand us, and to unite us in a way that is more profound than what divides us? Sig Paulson in Your Power to Be said, let love enter. He says, your inner voice may speak in a slightly different language, but you will get the point as you let the feeling of love expand in you. Your world will get a new message too. As you let the love feeling, that feeling of love, accelerate the flow of light into self-expression through you. Let your light shine so that men attracted by its radiance will recognize its source. The feeling of love active in you and available to them. Let the feeling of love add a new and deeper dimension to the experience. Put your faith into the feeling of love. Be willing to surrender to it. Rejoice in your growing understanding of it. Let it capture your imagination. Be enthusiastic about it. And let the feeling of love govern your exercise of authority. You are moving into a whole new phase of self-unfoldment. You are beginning to experience the greatest power in the universe, love, the creative energy that brought you into being as its self-expression. As you exercise your power to be love in action, you will not only know the truth that sets you free, you will feel it. Thank you, Sig. Namaste.